Before we move on to the next part, which will be dealing with the background vocals, I actually want to do that in this particular video. So in order to do this, we first need to kind of get a little bit of a lay of the land of what we want. I would like to have a VCA for drums. Now, I don't have any VCAs here right now at all. So if I click VCAs on my fader port, nothing is showing up. So let's go back to all, and we're going to kind of go through these one at a time. So drums, we're going to right click and we are going to add VCA for selected channels. All right. Now, in terms of my VCAs, I usually don't do this, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep my VCA channels to the right because I want everything. I don't want this to be interrupting the flow of my mix and what I'm used to. Now, if I go to VCAs, you'll see I have VCA 1. I might as well just call this the actual name of what it is. Now, even though it's only one track, I'm going to right click and I'm going to add a VCA for selected channels for this. Okay. And we are going to call this bass. We're basically calling these VCAs exactly what they are. The next one I will do is the VCA. You have to keep in mind if there's anything that's solo safe, like for example, if I solo the bass has a send for the LFE send, but that is solo safed. So if I solo the bass from a VCA track now, let me go over here. We'll go into my fader port. And if I solo, for example, bass here, I don't need to worry about any routing. That's going to play as is. And also if I solo the drums, that will work as well, because you have to keep in mind that we're doing our solo safing and everything is already built into our template. So we're good to go in terms of that. Okay, next up, we are going to do, let's come out of solo clear. Next up, I want to do VCA for the percussion. Also, I don't want to be mouse clicking all the time. So I'm just going to use my fader port or my actual key commands. And this I'm going to call perc. Okay, let's move along. We'll go back to the beginning here. We have keys. So our keys, I want my keys to be available on this as well. And this is an actual bus channel or effects chain. We don't have to worry about that. Okay, we're going to create a VCA for these. This is going to be keys. And also this will be a really great way to be able to control the level of everything together, because after we've created all these different VCAs, we can group them so that by default, if I move one, I move all of them. Okay, that might not be the solo behavior we want, but definitely it is for level changes. So we can create a group that we activate and deactivate as needed. Okay, so there are our organs. Now the next one, effects, we won't worry about that for now. Okay, we have all of these different guitars over here. Right click, VCA, and I'm going to go GTRS. Brilliant. Okay, we're moving along pretty good. Maybe it might pick up the pace a little bit here. I want to make a VCA for, let's call it lead vocals. This little element here, it kind of is seen as a lead vocal. Let me solo this out quickly. Track 81. I guess I should name that. Let's have a quick listen. Actually, track 81 is nothing. What about these? Okay, those will be part of the backgrounds, but these two over here, these two white tracks, I definitely want a VCA for these. And this is going to be, we can call this LD, and then we'll go VOX, so lead vox. Anything that's solo safed or anything that'll be tied to it. The effects that are audio, that might get a little bit messy, but we won't worry about that too much. The other thing that we could do, actually it might make more sense, is if we take this track over here, let's take our solos off, and this track over here, which are the effects prints that belong with the lead vocal. If we take these, we can actually just click over here and we can assign these to the lead vocal vox. So when I'm now in my VCAs, and if I solo the lead vocals, they get soloed with it. So that's nice. That's a nice little byproduct of the VCAs. Okay. All the background vocals, let's leave those for now. I actually want to have a space in between. And the next step we're going to do is horns. Now, with respect to horns, keep in mind that we did have a stereo print, which is still there. In case I decide I change my mind and I decide I want to use Halo Upmix, I'll leave that in place. But for now, I'm going to right click. Let's add a VCA for selected channels. And for this one, we're going to call it horns. Okay, and I think that will probably be close to being done because we have horns, we have crowd noise. These are effects returns. We got our room reverb, our plate verb, and stuff like that. So at a start, this should be enough to give me some basics. Now, one other thing that I will do is I'm actually going to add a VCA for, even though it's one track, I'm going to call it mix ref, or I could call it something maybe like 2.0 mix or 2.0 master or something like that. Something I usually go by what I can see on my actual fader port. now I have a really quick and easy way that from my actual fader port, I could basically just go over here and I could solo, like, for example, I could solo the drums, bass, this gives me a level of control where I can basically have a way that I could adjust things. Now, I also have the ability to bring the mix in and out, and I can see these now from the VCAs, which is a nice way to manage things. Also, if I needed to trim everything up and down, I could, for example, group all of these and I could move these all together. And this would, I'd have to make 100% sure that everything that's linked to my mix is linked together and part of a VCA. I could do that. I'm not going to do that right now, but it is nice that we have these VCAs over here. And if I want to solo out individual elements when I'm hearing things or blending, this can come in really handy when we are comparing the mix reference. So let me give a super quick example of that, and then we're going to move on to the next video. If I wanted to hop into the stereo mix for a moment, okay, let's say that I wanted to solo the stereo mix, and then I wanted to, this would be a case where I would actually go to the solo follow selection, and I would do something like this. So if I wanted to listen to the drums in the mix and then reference them against the drums over here, up on the west side of hell, be in the so for example, I'm not sure why, but the drums sounded a little bit more punchy and louder in the stereo mix. So I brought up my drums VCA a little bit. You could do the same and you could rebalance all these elements, because keep in mind, if we've changed anything, like for example, the horns would be another great example of that. Let's go to the chorus and let's listen to the stereo 2 mix, and then I'm going to toggle over to just the horns. And because I have that preference, that it automatically will solo. If I need to bring up the horns a bit so that they have the same punch and they hit me the same way as they do in the stereo master, then I can do that. So a case could be made where you could go through and individually do all those. Now, I wouldn't necessarily do them in isolation. I would probably do them in a group, but this is a good way to start. I'm just going to reset those changes because I'm going to do a final pass where we kind of fine tune everything. So we're in good shape here. The next video, we really need to take a look at getting those background vocals in order. So that's what we're going to take a look at in the next video.